Innocents pursued by a dark collector of souls.
We were terrified. That fear sets in and you just can't move. Your worst fear, he knows it and he makes it real.
Two brothers in the fight of their lives against the witch owl.
The night I saw the Lechuza, I was like questioning everything.
We're looking at each other just like, we're gonna die. This is the end. There's no hope.
The wildman monster that threw a town into panic.
I stood there in shock. I didn't know what this monster was going to do.
Even stranger, the mysterious manhunt that followed.
There were sheriff's cars, state police, black SUVs. The place was swarmed with federal agents. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Erie, Pennsylvania, an industrial city within America's crumbling Rust Belt. Beneath its tough exterior, whispers of a mysterious monster. Horrifying and hypnotic, a silent stalker with a tentacled death grip.
Every civilization has their own boogeyman, a creature that stalks and kills the innocent. The legend of the Rake states that once the Rake is seen, it will stalk the individual for the rest of its life until it drives them insane or it kills them. It's a relentless predator.
This is the enemy that Robin Swope has vowed to fight. Swope is a pastor at St. Paul's United Church of Christ in Erie. As a seminary-trained exorcist, he is no stranger to battles with the demonic.
It doesn't matter what religion you are. It's your faith in God and to drive out the evil, to force the creature to go away, because really, the place that they're haunting is the territory of the people who are living. And these shadow creatures really don't belong there.
When it comes to the Rake, the struggle with the shadow adversary is old.
The concept goes back to the times of ancient Egypt. So basically 4,000 years.
Osiris, god of the underworld, struck fear amongst the living. And over the ages, similar forms have come forth, often tall, dark, and faceless. The endgame is always death.
The Rake is more of a 21st century manifestation of the same persona that's been haunting for centuries.
He's looking for people's fear. He's definitely out for all of us. It was by far the scariest thing that I've ever seen. And I've had a few other experiences in life, but that is definitely the main one. Never been so scared in my life.
Carrie Giorgio runs a busy tattoo studio in Erie, Pennsylvania. From an early age, this artist is played by her own rules. She wasn't the kind of girl who's afraid of monsters.
In high school, I kind of kept to myself. It was a little bit different. My parents decided to send me to Catholic boarding school to try to drag me out of my shell. And that's not what it turned out to be.
The old boarding school sat in seclusion, surrounded by deep woods.
After class at school, there wasn't really much for me to do there. So we had to kind of find our own entertainment. And we used to sneak and smoke cigarettes.
One night, Carrie snuck out to meet her boyfriend. She was worried she might get in trouble. The last thing she expected was a visit from the Rake.
We weren't supposed to be out after dark. And sudden, we saw a teacher with his big black dog.
The school proctor was prowling for wayward students.
So we hid, just laid there still and quiet, scared. And we thought for sure, surely we were gonna get caught, get in a lot of trouble. I mean, that teacher was coming, we were petrified.
Like blood attracting sharks, their fear worked like a magnet for the Rake.
And all of a sudden, we saw a really tall human kind of crouched over, and it slowly rose up.
Oh my God.
And it just turned and looked at us. I don't have anything to compare it to. It's just a black on black being, and we couldn't move. We were terrified. Just that fear sets in and you just can't move.
Carrie stared in horror at the gargantuan, grasping creature.
His hands were large and his fingers were long, almost like a hand in a shadow, how the shadow would distort your fingers and extend them. They were long and pointy, like 3 times the size of a normal hand.
The Rake approaches the person sort of like a night terror, and then taunts the person until it catches them and takes them away.
Just as the Rake was closing in for the kill, the proctor and his dog were back. The night erupted in the cries of a howling dog.
It was in this, like, the glow of the streetlight, and just ran off in the night into darkness, and we were terrified.
The Rake had been thwarted. According to dozens of reports by those who survived, this creature prefers to kill when the victim is unaware of his presence.
The creature sometimes can blend into its environment, and it can sneak upon the person and extend tendrils from its back, almost like living tree limbs or octopus or squid tentacles, where they reach out to the person, they grab the person and trap them and take them away.
The Rake has been showing up either in the corner or on the bed or something. And it was an internet meme that was floating around.
In the past decade, hundreds of people have described terrifying encounters with the Rake.
Whatever we saw that night, it's like he knew what we feared. It's like he came to scare us that night, like he was stalking us.
Unfortunately, the stalking was far from over. The Rake wasn't finished with Carrie. And this monster has a long history of showing up when you're defenseless, asleep in bed. The Rake would pay a bedtime visit to Carrie for Giorgio. She barely survived the encounter.
I don't know what he would have done to me had my roommate not have woken up. My heart almost stopped. I had never been so scared in my entire life.
The Rake, nocturnal night stalker, with a terrifying taste for the young, towering, faceless, razor-sharp claws.
There are historically thousands of people who have seen these type of creatures. It's an intruder. It has long arms that move in a way that is not typical of a human being. It has tendrils that are not typical. And that featureless face, the unknown terror coming at you. That's what inspires the fear of dread.
For tattoo artist Carrie for Giorgio, the dark silhouette of this monster is firmly traced in her mind. When she was a teenager attending boarding school, Carrie narrowly escaped a nighttime attack by the Rake. In another visit, it showed up alongside her bed.
My dorm room had 2 bunks. One night I was in my bed, sleeping kind of restless. I woke up abruptly, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was 3:33. I saw my roommate staring down at me, horrified, just terror on her face.
Carrie had no idea what had just transpired, how close she had come to never waking up. Her roommate knew. Now she had laid eyes on the Rake.
She just looked terrified, almost started crying. She started telling me that she woke up at 3:30, looked down, and saw this being, this thing, sitting on my bed, just smothering me. And she was horrified. She described it as maybe 8 foot tall, thin, long fingers. It was so big, it couldn't fit under the bunk bed above it. It was hunched over. And she said, she couldn't move, paralyzed with fear.
This monster doesn't want witnesses.
I don't know if he was scared away, but when it ran off into the night, we just laid there frozen, terrified. I felt sick, I felt dizzy, I wanted to throw up, I wanted to cry, I had a million emotions at once. I don't know what he would have done to me had my roommate not have woken up, but I can't help but feel that he was trying to hurt me.
Carrie went to the dean to report what had happened. She was surprised by what followed.
The dean took it very seriously. So serious that when we entered our room that day at lunch hour, there was a medicine woman doing a smudge over my bed, saying prayers and shaking around shells. And for a Catholic school, that's unheard of. For them to resort to that, it had to be something they've dealt with before. A lot of kids had seen them. That Christmas break, I never went back. I was too scared to go back. I believe he's still around. I think that something like that has those capabilities that can change their shape, I believe that he's dimensional, really.
As a minister, I believe we're surrounded by angels, demons, spirits, and all kinds of things that we cannot see, but we sense. Sometimes these entities are violent. Sometimes they're kind and assisting. But the violent ones can stalk you for the rest of your life.
Years later, the Rake's mesmerizing image still lingers in Carrie Forgiorgio's mind. And now, on her body.
I became obsessed with it. I still am obsessed with it. It's so hard to believe. Even today, like, I still think about it all the time. I could see it like it happened yesterday.
"40 miles north of Washington, D.C., Sykesville, Maryland sits tucked within dense forest land. In the early 1970s, a few hundred families called this place home.
Sykesville was a very quiet little community. It was peaceful and an enjoyable place to be.
That is, until the day a monster showed up.
The town of Sykesville was in fear. People didn't know if they should be armed, if it was dangerous.
Sightings about cryptids in the woods are typically met with skepticism, dismissed as crazy, or just ignored. Something different happened in Sykesville.
It's interesting to me why so many authorities were here so quickly. It seems like the authorities were a little too ready.
The incident within 24 hours triggered a very enormous manhunt.
Something was going on. Even the Sykesville police had no idea what was going on.
If residents were in a panic, even stranger was the mysterious manhunt launched by law enforcement officials. Many trace the story's beginnings to 1973 and a house on the edge of Sykesville.
The woman lived in a rancher, and there was trees all around the house.
Residents in this rural area were used to living alongside wildlife. That night, the noise outside was unusual.
The woman thought there was a prowler out there.
Something had gotten into a shed near the house. Curious, she decided to take a closer look. Sykesville, Maryland. Decades ago, sightings of a monstrous beast gripped the town in a mix of fascination and fear. In 1973, a woman living near town heard a commotion outside. Luckily, she locked the door in time. And with an intruder like that, she needed help immediately. A local police officer responded to the call.
The officer got there and was looking around outside. And as he was putting his flashlight in that direction, whatever it was threw him on the ground, and he just rolled.
The creature had enormous strength and speed. It quickly vanished into the night.
From that moment on, Sykesville police started getting many phone calls. Reports were coming in by the dozen. People seeing things, hearing things. They were scared. And Sykesville police were actually overwhelmed with the amount of calls that they were getting. They didn't know what to make of it.
Several people in Sykesville thought it was an animal of some sort. Other people thought it was someone that escaped from the psychiatric hospital here in that area.
John Lutz was a wildlife tracker and one of the first to investigate reports of Sykesville's monster.
I was convinced there was a live entity of something that was moving around. And when I say by entity, some form of a creature. We did find some interesting tracks that measured over 14 inches long and what appeared to be 4 toes.
The legend of Bigfoot was known, but Sykesville's creature seemed different.
The description of what people were seeing wasn't exactly like Bigfoot. It was more human-like. Lots of hair, but a human face. They just couldn't tell what it was.
And that's where the mystery stood for close to a decade. Until someone else had a run-in with the beast. Lon Strickler had heard the local legend of the overgrown wildman, but he had never given it much thought. The burly factory worker wasn't ever afraid in the woods. That would soon change.
The date was May 9th, 1981. Typical spring day. I was going fishing at a location I was very familiar with, about a mile downstream from Sykesville. I did notice a dog roaming around in the weeds. I didn't pay it any attention. A couple of minutes later, I heard the dog let out a yelp. When the beast stood up, I didn't know what to think. At first, I thought it was a person. It was about 7 to 8 foot tall. As I watched, this being turned around. The face looked human to a degree, but it was more Neanderthal, and I didn't know what it was. I stood there in shock. I didn't know what this monster was going to do. It started moving away toward the woods. It was very swift. I felt this had to be reported. I quickly got in my car, hadn't even taken the waders off, and drove towards Sykesville. Found the first payphone I could find, and I called the Sykesville Police Department.
It was huge. It was like 8 feet tall. And
I swear it's true.
I described to them what I had seen, and they didn't believe me. But they said they would meet me at the location.
Soon after his encounter, a bizarre chain of events began to unfold. Events that Strickler can't understand to this day.
It was very strange because I immediately got back in my car and drove back. It was no more than a 4 or 5 minute drive.
When he pulled up, Strickler was shocked at what he saw.
There were police cruisers, there were black vehicles there. What I thought was federal.
Sir, this is a dangerous situation. You need to leave now.
I didn't know what to think.
You cannot be here. No.
I want to know what that is.
You need to leave now.
Have you seen it?
Now.
Some 4 decades ago, the small town of Sykesville, Maryland, erupted in fear after a flurry of sightings of a wildman in the woods. The Sykesville Monster.
There are many theories as to what this creature could be. Is it the standard Bigfoot, the Yeti, the Yowie, the Sasquatch, or is it something more? Maybe a throwback to our ancestors.
I always thought the Sykesville creature somehow got washed down out of the mountains in Tropical Storm Agnes.
In the summer of 1972, Hurricane Agnes blew through Maryland, unleashing a torrent of flooding that tore the Sykesville Bridge from its moorings. Did the storm let loose something monstrous as well?
Sightings in the Sykesville area never started till about September of '72.
Over the years, the encounters continued. And in May 1981, mill worker Lon Strickler was fishing near Sykesville when he saw some sort of hairy hominid moving in the brush. Within minutes, the woods were swarming with police.
State policeman told me to get back in my car and leave. And I explained to him, well, I made the call. He said, you gotta leave.
Have you seen it? It's massive. It was huge.
You cannot be here.
When I was told to leave, I was frustrated. Something was going on. Something I didn't know about.
With the first Sykesville Monster encounter, just one police officer responded. Almost 10 years later, Strickler's encounter triggered a manhunt. The authorities were on red alert. And it wasn't just local police. By all appearances, the response had turned to the feds.
I came back about an hour later, and the whole area was cordoned off. There were people going through the woods, dogs going through the woods.
There were helicopters, there were sheriff's cars, state police, black SUVs. The place was swarmed with federal agents. That doesn't make any sense to me.
So I was told that there had been some evidence found, but I was told I had to leave. So that's what I did. I left and went home.
The town was in sort of a chaos. There was a curfew put on. You couldn't go out at night. People were scared here.
Exactly which authorities were in Sykesville, or what they may have recovered, has never been documented.
The fact that the officials got there as quickly as they did tells me that they were tracking it and they were ready for it. But I do believe the government realizes that these creatures are real. They just do not want the public to say much or know much about it.
The government's reluctance to comment has stoked the community's suspicion.
It's very creepy to me and very disconcerting that there are no records of the Sykesville Monster in our own police department.
The official record is blank. Yet cryptozoologists are adamant that something was out there.
The U.S. government, through the Department of Defense, actually released a bulletin that asked their local personnel to begin investigations whenever such an incident occurs. And to this day, they still do, although they continue to deny their involvement.
Strickler decided to try and find some answers.
I actually found a few of the original witnesses from the 70s and interviewed many of them. And then I asked a sketch artist in Florida, who was a retired detective, to give me a rendering. What I received was a picture of a caveman, of a Neanderthal. But that is what I'd seen. This was not an ape, this was not a gorilla. It was exactly what I saw. This was the Sykesville Monster. My encounter made me realize that there are other things out there. I don't know if the people are ready for it. I don't know if they're ready for something like that.
"200 miles southwest of Albuquerque, the farming town of Roswell, New Mexico, sits perched on the high plains. The infamous site of an alleged UFO crash in the 1940s. Roswell is also the site of a sinister visitation by a flying monster. One that's feathered, female, and frightening. A shape-shifting witch known as Lechuza, the owl.
It's sent to cause terror and eventually have the person die of fear. That's the purpose of this thing, is to scare you to death.
The origins of the legend supposedly start with an old medicine woman, one that strayed from healing to black magic. After newborn babies went missing, villagers arrived at her door. They were determined to wipe out the conjuring crone. This witch, death didn't last long. Lechuza was born, and she's out for revenge. Lechuza, part owl, part woman, all monster. The ancient Mayans believed that once the sun went down, the realm of death arrived, and the owls were gods of the damned. In myths around the world, owls are perceived as heralds of doom, baby stalkers, night killers.
The Lechuza is really pervasive in the Southwest, and it's moving into other parts of the United States. The idea behind the Lechuza is that it drains you physically, and it does this through fear and torment.
When children and adults see this owl, it's always at night, and they don't always see the next day.
The worst case is people being found with their eyes clawed out. People being found dead with claw marks in their backs, and they're found like that in the middle of the street, anywhere, middle of like nowhere.
That to me is horrifying. It's probably one of the scariest creatures that I've ever heard about.
Octavio Ramos is a journalist and technical writer at Los Alamos National Lab.
My parents were in their 20s when they moved to the United States from Mexico. My father came as a migrant worker and moved his way into Roswell, New Mexico. My mother also moved over to Roswell, where she was working in a household. That's when they met and they married.
This is it, we're here.
Soon they found a new home to start their life together.
It was their first home. For them, it was quite luxurious. They never had anything so big in their lives before. So they were extremely happy of where they were.
The young couple settled in, full of hope for the future.
I was born, I was only a few months old.
With their newborn son, Juan and Maria's paradise was complete. Only the very bundle that brought them so much joy may have attracted a wicked force.
The Lechuza may have sensed that there was a baby in the house.
One night in the fall of 1964.
My father was in charge of watering the land that surrounded the house. At night, it's easier to water because there's less evaporation. The last thing he would do before turning in would be to go outside and make sure that the generator was running properly. And that's when he saw the fireball coming from our neighbor's house back over to our house.
Maria!
Juan called Maria out to see it, to make sure he wasn't imagining this.
My parents described it as a very orange flame that was like scintillating blue. It was incredibly bright, incredibly bright. He thought it might be a meteor, or he thought it might be some strange form of lightning.
The terrifying visit was just the beginning. Every night, the frightening fireball descended upon the family.
My parents remember the dogs just barking constantly. And then eventually going from barking to this high-pitched howling. They were so terrified of this thing.
Juan still had to brave the outdoors to take care of his chores in the barn. That's when the true nature of the strange events was revealed. Lechuza.
There was a lot of commotion in the barn, and he went into the barn and he saw 10 to 12 owls inside the hayloft. He felt as though there was something wrong, and he felt really, really terrified. And my father doesn't terrify easily. And so he went back into the house and he told my mother that he felt as though there was something wrong. And that's when they started to hear the owls walking on top of the roof. Interspersed with that sound was that deeper, resonating sound, as if there was something with the owls walking with them, except the sound was much heavier and deeper. And that's when the Lechuza began to move downward onto the shutters. And my mother, being curious, decided to open one of the windows. She screamed, and she told my father what she had seen. And so they stayed there for the rest of the night.
They had survived a mysterious fireball, a visit by the witch owl herself. Then, Juan fell gravely ill.
He had been working in the field when the appendicitis had struck him. So he was in bed. He slept most of the time. He was getting weaker and weaker by the day.
Juan's health continued to deteriorate, and the Lechuza came every night to check on his downward spiral, as if to watch him die.
My mother says that she believed my father was going to die if they did not take action, which is why she went to the extreme of going to a curandera,
Y de esa manera desaparecerá el hechizo.
which is a good witch, supposedly a good witch. Going to a curandera means that you're tapping into magic, and any type of magic is not a healthy thing. But the only way to have destroyed this creature was to do as the curandera said.
Para eso hay que rezar con todo el corazón y con todo
The
tu alma
curandera told them someone was using the owl witch to harass the
para que
family.
os dé la fuerza.
Both the newborn baby and Juan were in danger if they didn't act soon. They had but one option.
Take a bullet and engrave a crucifix or a cross on it.
En el nombre de tu Hijo Jesús, que dio la vida por nosotros. Amén.
Load the rifle and go outside and shoot it. And she said that he was the only person that could possibly go out there and kill it.
In 1964, in Roswell, New Mexico, a sinister owl witch, known as Lechuza, was stalking a young couple, Juan and Maria Ramos, and their newborn baby. After just days of torment, Juan was sick, near death. His only hope for survival, killing the monster, using a bullet carved with a cross.
The torment was so bad, my father decided that he had enough. And so he loaded it, went outside, waited for it to manifest itself into the ball of fire. He said that there was a horrible, high-pitched scream, and he shot it. They found some feathers, and they found some blood. He doesn't know if he killed it or if he wounded it, but that was the end of it for them. It never tormented them again.
Juan recovered from his illness. He eventually shared the story of La Lechuza with his son, Octavio, but refuses to discuss it with anyone else.
Well, my father doesn't like to talk about the Lechuza because he is very religious, and anything to do with any type of magic is considered blasphemous in the Catholic Church. But I know by the cadence of his voice that he saw something that he'd rather not talk about. And I think it's one of the few secrets that my father will take to the grave.
Reports of La Lechuza continue to surface across the Southwest. Recently, in Austin, Texas, two teenagers went looking for fun. They nearly ended up as prey for the bloodthirsty owl witch.
We just had band practice and we were hanging out, and we just had one of those nights where we really didn't have anything to do.
In the summer of 2010, David Garcia was 15 years old. His brother, Mike Andres, was 6 years older. On a whim, they decided to hunt around in a derelict structure on the outskirts of town.
Come on, you guys go that way. We're gonna look this way. Dude, I don't want to. Come on. I'll be honest, I was nervous because I've never really gone into an abandoned building at midnight. Come on, let's go. And it was like, am I really doing this?
As they entered the building, the air suddenly went cold.
It was that eerie kind of cold where you get a chill up your spine and you're just kind of like, I shouldn't be here.
This is so cool.
So we walked around and we could hear scuttling and noises here and there, things falling. We thought, it was just an abandoned building. Maybe nobody took care of it and it was just falling apart.
Did you hear that?
But then the noises turned into voices.
I just hear there's someone behind me Mike.
Was that you? What are you trying to do? Freak me out? Dude, it wasn't me.
It was more of a softer, younger woman's voice.
I think it came from down there. Let's go check it out.
I was scared. That's what we were like, who was in here with us.
Despite their fear, daredevil courage led the brothers on.
When we start walking, we hear a screech.
What was that?
A screech, just petrifying kind of screech.
I heard wings. I heard her talons. I heard claws.
It was clear they trespassed on monster territory.
When you hear this, you're mortified, you're frozen in fear.
There it is.
All we see is something perched over the banister.
Mike's yelling, oh my God, bad things are gonna happen if we stay here. We're gonna die. Tonight's the night we're gonna die. I literally thought it would just get us and rip us apart.
Mike and David were running for their lives, while Lechuza close behind.
All we saw was something black feathery slam itself against the window. It was fierce. It wanted to break those doors down.
On the other side of the glass, a creature that would haunt their memory forever.
And I see clear, a young girl. I mean, nothing past 20, just staring.
In the folklore, it describes the creature's eyes that are like dark chasms that you stare into and that create a really heightened sense of paralysis and horror.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Breaking free of Lechuza's mesmerizing grip, the brothers escaped with their lives.
I truly believe that I was in the presence of this majestical, demonic thing. I wish I could put in more words how beautifully terrible it was.